Hi, I'm Jeff Gordon. This is another episode of Around the Track, and I'm with the man, Smoke, Tony Stewart, and we're getting ready to check out his incredible car collection.
Oh, the sides up there are off the car we won our last race at Sonoma with.
Really?
In the left side there, you can see where we pancaked Denny. See where his wheel marks went. I mean, I thought, well, at least if I can pancake him to the wall, we're going to take off at the same speed, or I might get a jump on him that way.
It worked out pretty well.
Might have been a little excessive.
Did it ever run again, or it came straight off the track?
Nah, that's exactly the way it ran.
Wow.
Early in the race,
right.
Kurt's U-joint went through the screen of it.
Yeah.
And you can see the screen in there, how it went through.
I think Carl Edwards would like to come and inspect this car.
I bet he would. I bet he would. So the cool part is this, I mean, this thing, you can fire it up and drive it down the road. So Hendrick Motorsports and Rick kept the motor, kept every piece of it, and quarantined it, I think, for 5 years.
Wow.
And then they rebuilt it, put it on the dyno, ran it, got the dyno sheets for it, and the shop, they put it back together. And
that's a special car right there.
Yeah.
I mean, to have it original right off the track, I mean, it's great that Hendrick did that with the engine too, but I mean, to have it right off the track with what an incredible race and championship that was.
I wanted people to see how it finished the race.
Right. That's cool.
So it was
really cool.
It was pretty neat. And I'm sure we'll be old and gray one day, and if I can still fit in the seat of it, we'll drive it in parades and stuff.
Man, you got some cool stuff. I mean, when did you always have these old Indy cars, or is that something?
I don't even remember how I got them all. There's one more that you haven't seen yet, but this one is the car that we won, or that we ran at the 500 in '97 and won the championship at the end of the year in '97 with it. The actual chassis stops right here. Your feet are right here.
Yeah.
Right underneath
that. So this chassis is older than this chassis? This one looks older to me.
No. Huh. So that was a G-Force, and then we went to Dallara.
This is a Dallara?
Which is a Dallara.
Yeah.
So the Dallaras had the oval intake, the G-Force had the triangle.
Got it, yeah.
Guys like you that paved the way for me to go to NASCAR never got an opportunity to do this, because this came along, well, in first year was '96, and you were already down in NASCAR by then. But that opened up probably a dozen of us from the dirt track world got to run IndyCars because of the IRL.
If the IRL had been in place, I almost feel 100% confident I would have driven IndyCars. And I will say that's probably the one regret I have is I didn't get to race in the Indy 500. When the opportunity did come, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it now. I would have done it when I was 19 or 21, but not now. I'm 35. Pretty much answered all the questions I had about whether I'm going to ever get back in a sprint car or midget. We're
going to get you. You are going to get back in a sprint car. We'll come put a bag over your head and hijack you. We're going to get you back in a sprint car.
I tried to get in David Gravel's car out in Knoxville, and I got in. I didn't think I was going to get out. I literally thought they're going to have to cut the bars out to get me out.
He's kid size. He's kid size.
Yes. I'm not. Right. I'm not kid size.
Speaking of Knoxville Nationals, these are two of Donnie's Nationals winning cars.
Very cool. I loved racing at Bloomington. I would go down every Friday night. We'd travel from Pittsburgh down there and race.
I didn't do it with a wing though. You went a lot faster around there than I did.
I did it once or twice without a wing. I'm not sure which was harder. I mean, non-wing's pretty tough.
Yeah, when you're going fast at a small place like that where you're running under 10 seconds, it's the margin for error is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Making a good lap.
And you used to have to, by the end of the night, you had to run right on the edge. You had no wall right to that lip, and you just had to put it right up there. That was fun. That's what I ran the Outlaw race there, whatever year that was, like 87, 88, something like that. I think we finished second or third. That was pretty cool.
He's running an 87 or 88. I'm racing go-karts still. I haven't even got to a sprint car yet.
Are these active cars?
No,
these are older cars?
This is the car that I won my first World Outlaw race in.
Dude, how amazing is that? How amazing is that you had an entire career in NASCAR and IndyCar and didn't drive wing sprint cars and went back and won an outlaw race? Like, to me, that is unbelievably difficult to do.
And and we've talked about this before, I mean, of all the cars I've driven in my career, I mean, and literally you can go from an IndyCar to a Cup car, and that's polar opposite ends of the spectrum, and the Wing Sprint car falls right in the middle of all that. This is by far, it's not the hardest car to drive,
right?
But it's the hardest car to be really good and really fast in.
The car's one thing, but searching the track, learning what direction the tracks can go in, how to set the car up to be good, you know, at the end of the race or midway through the race, I mean, it's a whole nother skill set. I noticed some trophies up there look like they might have a little age on them. I mean, how much does stuff like that mean to you? I know for me, I'll go back every once in a while and I'll find some old rings, like some USAC rings or, you know, a trophy, and then it starts clicking with you about remembering those times. I mean, does this stuff bring back a lot of great memories?
Yeah, it does. It's you know, when we moved into the new house and moved out here on the property, everything just kind of went up in the mezzanine. But I'll go up and look for something, and I'll stop and I'll see something, and I'll look at a trophy and go, man, I don't even remember being at that race. But then you'll start remembering things about it. But you know, I've got one of Steve Lewis's dirt midgets up there. The red car, there's the car I won my first Chili Bowl with Keith Coons.
Wow. What year was that?
I think it was 2007, I believe.
So it was
like 07 and 09.
After you were in NASCAR.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And those are all, you know, 3 of those cells are, well, 4 of them, I guess. 2 of them are mine and 2 of them are Donnie's. One's Steve Kinser's.
Is that
one
Sides?
from, yeah, Jason Sides, Greg Hodnett, Dominic Selzy. But I've got buddies that, you know, I race with, and when they kill a fuel cell, I'm like, save me the shell, and I'll put it on my wall of shame up there.
I love Rico. He's so much fun. Cool guy. Great family.
He's a lot of fun. When we hired Steve Kinser, I mean, we hired the king of wing sprint car racing, and there's no significance to where this car ran, but I just wanted to keep one of them that he drove, because I'm like, Steve Kinser drove for me, and I want to have something to show everybody that he actually did drive for me.
I mean, he was the guy. Like, if I had a project at school and they said, you got to do this project, I would say, can I do it on racing? And they're like, okay, another racing. And I would always do it on Steve Kinser. Like every year, when I changed teachers, I would say, okay, this teacher doesn't know how much I like Steve Kinser and how much I know about Steve Kinser. I'm going to do this to get a good grade.
This is the first Silver Crown car I drove for Benny Leba.
So tell me, how did this ride come about?
Ira Saunders helped me get the ride, actually, because Ben Leba was a Hoosier tire distributor, and I hadn't had an opportunity to drive a Silver Crown car yet, so I got to drive it at IRP the year before it went to the 8 car. And but what kind of put us on the map in this car was going to the Copper Classic the next year, and I ran second to Mike Bliss. And I'd actually passed him on the outside, and the caution came out and put him back in front, and I couldn't get back around him. I got tight after the caution, but
I think I finished second to Bliss at Copper World in a Midget.
And there's no shame in that.
No,
Bliss was pretty good.
good.
He's a great pavement driver, but
I love the bolt-on down bars.
yeah. And we ran those on dirt that way also.
Right? Did you ever drive for them? Oh, I thought you
Never
did.
did get to drive for Fred.
So I was driving for them before we went to the Beast chassis, and it didn't have a down tube on it. Silver Crown car at DeCoin, and I went in the corner and the brakes, just the whole thing just started shaking. And I was like, oh, this is going to be big, and clipped the guy I was trying to pass, went into the guardrail, went straight through the guardrail, but literally cleaned off the injector stack. The cable got the cage, and you could just see the indentation from the cable, and then luckily it must have just flipped it under. And I was thinking, as soon as I saw these down tubes in this car, I was thinking, oh yeah,
That would have been nice.
to have had those. I think that would have helped me get through that cable.
Yeah.
Luckily, I did make it through. You got a lot of bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh, look, the IROC car. That's cool.
So that was the last year they ran the IROC series.
Did you win that year?
We won the championship, and that's the car we ran that last race. I think Matt Kenseth won the race. We ran third, but we won the points with it.
This car is gorgeous. I love that.
I've got cars that I've got. You know, the yellow Corvette was from my first Brickyard win. We bought both the pace cars. I gave one of them to my crew chief, Greg Zippadelli, and kept the one that we rode around in the back of after the race on the interview lap. And then I bought a couple, when they started building Camaros again, I bought, that's the 14th Camaro off the line when they started building the Camaro again. That's the 14th 2014 Stingray off the line.
Oh, those are great cars.
Now we're buying Fords.
Yeah, now you're buying Fords.
Now
are you getting 14 off the line?
I haven't got that far yet.
You have a Ford GT yet?
No. Kurt Busch and those guys, the fancy guys, got those. I got the Raptor. I got the pickup instead.
Yeah. Listen, based on what I've seen around here today, the Raptor is going to suit you well.
Yeah. And then my favorite movie of all time was Smokey and the Bandit, and I had to have a Trans Am with the eagle on the hood. Got bikes that the insurance won't let me ride now. Apparently, if you break your leg and you break your back and cost the insurance company money,
maybe being on two wheels is
they don't want you to.
Yeah, ideal.
They try to eliminate opportunities for you to collect on them. So,
I think they're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
I mean that looks
I'm
like
not
fun.
too disappointed.
That looks like fun, and I'm sure you'd love to take one of these to Sturgis, but I don't think it's going to stop you from going to Sturgis.
No.
When I think of you, I think of those yellow V6s.
Mm-hmm. So the car on top up here, all those road course races that I won with Gibbs was that chassis. And it kept getting reskinned and everything.
We had a similar thing. I don't know what it was about back those days when you built those road course chassis. They just worked well, and you kept them going to the track, put a new body on it.
So the chassis number on that car is 048.
Really?
So that's, you know how the chassis numbers work. So that was the 48th car that Gibbs had built. And, they had Dale Jarrett, they had Bobby Labonte, and then I came along. Well, that was a very early car in the Gibbs system.
Yes, it was. I know. I bet
won a lot of races.
They're on like 1,000 or something now.
But that car, obviously,
I think I may remember a race that I got beat in that car. I thought I had you that day. You remember at Watkins Glen, you wheel hopped down into one? I was like, oh yeah, thank you, Tony. 2 laps later, here I am doing the exact same thing.
It's funny because I said the same thing. Oh, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, the difference is you got the checkered flag, I didn't.
Yeah. So that's the 2002 championship car. This one is the 2005 championship car. And then when we go back on the other side, the 2011 championship car's in there too. So IROC, IndyCar championship, 3 Cup championships, the Triple Crown championship cars, all of them are here.
That's quite a collection.
Then there's one back here that is not so cool, but there's a couple cool ones in the back, but there's one it's kind of cool to look at, but it wasn't cool to be in at the time. So Raleigh sold that car to a guy in Australia. The guy raced it for a while and then restored it, but he's still got some of these RKR stickers or his stickers on the car.
Okay.
But other than that, it's exactly the way we ran it when we ran it last.
Very cool car.
Still had wishbone.
That car may have contributed a little bit to our career, getting where we.
Oh, no doubt.
Where we ended up.
Well, and the reason this car ended up being a Crystal Pepsi car is when you drove it, it was Diet Pepsi.
Right.
And so I didn't even know it. I just thought it was what Raleigh's sponsorship deal was, and they went to the Crystal Pepsi brand. But you made that Diet Pepsi car iconic. And so when I drove it, he wanted to separate it and keep your legacy in that car separate. So he went to the Crystal Pepsi sponsorship and changed it to make it different.
And then you made this one iconic.
Well, I didn't have quite the success you did. I mean, I won a little Hut 100 in it, and we won 2 races at Terre Haute, and that's all the races I ever won for Raleigh, but we were close a bunch of times.
So what is it back here?
Well, that's Sheldon Kinser's car.
No kidding. See, I raced against Sheldon. We're talking about Bloomington and some of those tracks. I used to race against Sheldon. He was incredible.
There's a dimple in the top of the cage right here. And you can probably see it from there.
Yeah, I see it.
But I've got a photo of Sheldon sitting in the car, and they're shooting this way, and it's on pit road at Eldora. It's probably, I'm not assuming it's a 4-crown race, but I was assuming it was a 4-crown race. But you can see that dimple in the cage.
So
it's like, wow,
it's authentic.
Yeah, you know it's the real
I'm guessing
thing.
that was a big rock.
I guarantee.
Or
a big crash that he got into something. And you know about these.
Oh yeah.
They did the 4 signature series.
How many did they produce? Because I know for us it was like 24.
Yeah, I think it was 2,000 that they did of ours. but I knew the 20 was going to be a big number and probably 120 and stuff. So I just said, hey, I just want one of them just to say I've got one. So we got one from them and kept it.
Now this one, why is this a memory you want to relive?
Well, it's not actually. So, I mean, obviously this was 25 laps before we lost a good buddy of ours with Dale Sr., but this was the crash that I was involved in where physically on the racetrack, I was 3 wide, but I was just enough ahead of the guys that at the time this happened, I was running 3rd at the Daytona 500 and got turned in the wall, the air got underneath it, it picked it up, and I landed on top of my teammate, Bobby Labonte, who was running 23rd at the time. And so, I mean, it pushed the steering column up.
Look at this cage, how much it moved.
This is the scary part of it because you know how the strength of tubing works and you know how having that circumference, I mean, you can feel where it almost breached through the tubing there. And if it would have done was right here.
Wow.
And that's probably what knocked me out right there.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember being in the infield and stopped, and Bobby Labonte is with his head right here, and he goes, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "You sure we can cut the top off?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt the car." He goes, "I don't think you have to worry about that." And I kind of looked at him funny. He just put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, "Let's get you out. I'll tell you all about it in a minute."
You realized right then you weren't as okay as you thought you were.
I didn't know what was going on, but I could tell by what he was saying that it wasn't a good deal. And then when I got out, I'm like, "Yeah, we definitely could have cut the top off."
You know, we know about the trophies and the wins and the championships, but it's these things that I think define you of what a race car driver truly is and goes through along the way in their journey.
AJ Fike's throttle sticks going into turn 3. He's behind me. I never even seen him coming. Drills us in the left rear. And after looking at the video, tenfold, I would rather him hit me than what was going to happen to him because he was going to hit hard.
Yeah, that slowed him down.
And it slowed him down a lot. But it spun me around and I hit head first in the wall.
Oh, man.
And it took the front of the car and just made it like a banana.
But that was this car?
This car. So
wow.
Kelly Drake went back and years later and went and straightened it out. You wouldn't want to race it.
Right.
But it looks right.
It still looks awesome. You know how much I like flames.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Stay tuned for upcoming guests.